Ladies and gentlemen, the weekend.
We pushed you over the edge, Chris.
On the dark side.
It's hard to distinguish Luke Skywalker. I'm an asshole, just so everybody knows. Well, I gotta get the right screen on. I was doing so good. How's everyone doing? Welcome to Force Connect, the only live Friday night Star Wars talk show that takes your calls every single Friday night. I am Pete Fletzer. I'm one of your hosts. I'm joined tonight by Nick Milkey, as usual. Nick, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing fantastic. This has been in the works for several weeks. I love this movie. I love The Last Jedi. So excited to dig into it, talk about it tonight. And I've had a ridiculously long day at work. So the ability to have a cocktail and talk with friends about something I love is the way to end a Friday.
That is awesome. And speaking about friends, Chris is on his way. He's doing some stuff with our friends at Blue Bantha Milk. But we also have another friend, Mr. Patrick Kottner. Patrick, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I love your description of this show because it narrows it down so much.
Right.
It's the only live Star Wars show on the internet where you can call in and we'll talk to you.
On Friday night.
On Friday night at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want anybody like telling us that we're not accurate.
Right. You're doing great. Very happy to be here. Very happy to be back. I think I was on this one, right?
Yes, you were.
Yes. Yeah, you've been on this one.
A couple different shows on the network, so I wanted to make sure it was the same one.
I think it was this
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah, I think it was.
He's done this one. He's done Podcast of the Whills.
Yeah.
And I'll throw this out there too. Every year that we've done Podathon, we get fantastic plug commercials from Patrick for Podathon. The favorites, like I think last year you laid in your bed and just recorded and was like berating people to donate, and it totally worked.
Right?
So.
Yeah, that sounds like me.
It works.
It's usually a let me put in no thought last second. Oh my gosh, I need to make this, and then whatever.
Oh yeah, Nick said he needed that thing. Yeah, totally worked.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Well, that's awesome.
We're always very appreciative.
Well, thank you for having me back.
We're very happy to have you back. And so tonight, as Nick had referenced, tonight we're talking about The Last Jedi. We've danced around the subject. We've brought it up off and on, and every time The Last Jedi comes up, we're always like, we'll talk about that sometime. But now we're doing it. We're going to talk about it, and we want to hear from you. As always, as Patrick pointed out, we are the only live Friday night talk show at 9 o'clock at the East Coast that takes your calls. So we want to hear your calls, and we want to hear all opinions. If you didn't love the movie, that's awesome too. We just want to hear why. No use of the word woke or agenda. If you take those two words out, we definitely want to hear what you have to say.
You want like real reasons. Don't use the dumb talking points. Like,
that's right.
If there's something you really want to talk about that we all have not heard a million times, those are the stuff, Yeah.
Tell us an actual thing.
Yes.
Right. Or if you love it and you want to talk about why you love it, we definitely want to hear that too. But before we do that, as we always do a little housekeeping. First thing I want to tell you about is over the next couple months, for the last, since we started Force Connect last year or restarted it, it's been appearing in the Around the Galaxy podcast stream. It will continue to for the next couple months, but we've created a Force Connect podcast stream all on its own, just so if you don't want to hear the interview show and you just want Force Connect, it's going to be there for you. So you can absolutely do that. Keep an eye out for that. Just search on all your favorite podcast feeds. What do they call them? Podcasters? I don't know. Whatever
I call them podcatchers, but
Okay.
that's just me being crazy.
That's that's what the kids today are calling it, the podcatchers. But you'll be able to find Force Connect. It's in some of them now. It's begun populating, so go check that out, or listen in both streams because that helps us. So that would be great too. In addition, make sure to follow us on all your social media channels at the SSW Network. Go to the SSWnetwork.com to find information about the show, to find links to all kinds of things like our merch. We have been launching new shirts like every couple days. We've just been in a flurry of excitement. We launched 2 this week. One is a brand new and improved Weird Space Friends shirt, and really excited about that one. There's 2 versions. This is the jersey version. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's got logos on the arms. It's a collector. I think you'll be able to see it on eBay for upwards of $49.99. I'm not sure. So go there for that. We also launched with the loss of the Galactic Star Cruiser, Motel Order 66. We'll leave the lightsaber on for you. That is available in shirts and all kinds of good stuff. And so go ahead and check out the show or the shop. It's at sswnetworkshop.com. And if you use code SHILL20, you will get 20% off your entire order. And speaking of shills, Chris Ryans has jumped into the screen. Sir, how you doing, my friend?
I am here.
We'll take it. I don't ask for anything more than you just being here, because just being here, sometimes that's enough, Chris. Sometimes that's enough.
I'm glad I can.
Well, we're glad you're here. Yeah. Are you ready for a toast? Because I'm sure that Nick is ready with our weekly toast to whatever is on his mind this week.
I do have a toast, and I think it's a birthday toast this week. Very appropriate. It's actually been dropped in the chat a couple of times at the top. 110 years ago today, 110, that's a big one. The man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Peter Cushing, was born on May 26th, 1913.
Wow.
Giving us Grand Admiral Tarkin, of course. We love that character in Star Wars, but he had
Chris has the actually career. Face on. I have to say it. Chris has the actually face
I didn't. Sorry.
He didn't say nothing.
No, I didn't say a thing.
He's very polite.
Yep.
So yeah, we have Tarkin, but the career of Peter Cushing, in the Hammer films, the horror movies, the Frankenstein, Dracula, the stuff that he did. I love, one of my favorite things in kind of Star Wars. That's right, Eric. Grand Moff Tarkin. Sorry. I stand corrected. I'll mail my fan card to Chris, and he can keep it until I earn it back. But I love the stories. One of my favorite, I'm a sucker for behind the scenes Star Wars stuff. And some of my favorites are all the little unique things that have come out, hearing about Peter Cushing being on set, working on Star Wars. It's reported that when he smoked cigarettes, he wore gloves so that the makeup people didn't have to deal with nicotine stains on his fingers. We all know the thing about the house slippers that he wore. He had a similar thing that Alec Guinness did with understanding the dialogue, but he really did want to get it right and sound, as cunning and calculated as Tarkin was. So I love that actors that put that kind of stuff into the work that they do, and to have been a part of this for the short amount of time he was just in that one movie. And then of course, what they did in Rogue One, which I don't actually hate as much as some other, computer generated things that have happened in Star Wars. I'm raising my glass tonight to Peter Cushing, the life that he lived, the work that he did. And also, of course, to everybody joining us tonight, hanging out, and to Patrick for being here as well. So cheers and happy Star Wars.
Yes. So before we hit our first break, Patrick, why don't you, for those who don't know you, as you said, you've hung out with us in the past, give us a little bit about where people may have heard of you or may want to get to know you a little bit. Yeah,
for sure. I feel like the most relevant thing to this is that I produce and co-host a show called The George Lucas Talk Show with comedians Connor Ralph and Griffin Newman. Connor plays George Lucas and Griffin plays Watto, and they interview people as themselves. So we've had Seth Meyers on, we've had Weird Al on, we've had insane. Darcy Carden, just like crazy people. Ahmed Best, just wild people. We have an episode premiering right now from literally right this moment right now. Don't leave, but you can watch it later. We were in London a couple months ago, and we had Jerome Blake, who played a bunch of characters in Phantom Menace and was a really interesting guy, a really fascinating guy. And this guy, Pierre Bohanna, who was a prop guy on Phantom Menace and worked on all the Disney movies and built the freaking bat suit for like Dark Knight, just like a crazy guy. So it's a very silly, very fun show. And yeah, that's probably where people would want to check me out on other stuff if they
well, and I will also throw in there while you guys were in London for Celebration, you were also on the stage with our friends over at Star Wars Minute for one of their Rise of Skywalker minutes, and that actually came out just this past Monday of this week. So if you hit Star Wars Minute on Monday, you'll get to hear Patrick and the George Lucas Talk Show crew with Pete and Alex doing their thing.
It's a good minute. It's the Lando introduction, and also
it is the Lando introduction.
My maybe top 2 or top 3 Rise of Skywalker character, the guy who's driving the truck that Lando was in, who opens the door and goes, "Okay," and then they close the door.
Closes it back.
Maybe only after Bulio. Bulio's number 1, but I think this guy's number 2.
Yep, underserved completely.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Well, we are going to be talking about The Last Jedi tonight. We are going to be taking your calls. I already see a couple people have called in, which is great. We want to hear from you. We want to talk about this movie, and we're going to do that when we come back from this break in just a minute with more Force Connect. Well, welcome back. I think Nick is about to talk about the things that I totally blew by. I was so excited that we had a guest and we had Chris and we're talking Last Jedi. I left off some very important things on the housekeeping tonight.
Crucial housekeeping things that need to be pointed out very, very quickly. Pete mentioned the website, the socials, the merchandise, all that fun stuff. He talked about Force Connect getting its own podcast stream, but there are 2 other things that we want to draw your attention to. This Sunday, day after tomorrow, if you are a Patreon member, you will get to be a part of this. If you are not a Patreon member, there's the perfect time right now. You can see the address at the bottom of the screen. Join Patreon. When we have live interviews for the Around the Galaxy podcast, our patrons get to watch us record those interviews live before they put them out in the stream. And Sunday afternoon, we are very, very thrilled to have back for a second time, actually just in the last few months, the fabulous Deborah Wilson. Deborah from Mad TV. And certainly relevant to all of us is she plays Seer Junda in the Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor games. And we're so excited to talk to her. We talked to her before the game came out a couple months ago. Amazing insight into the character, what she put into it. And now that the game is out, the 3 of us have either played it or know how the game goes. We're excited to talk to her and hear about that journey and what, the second version of the game means for her and her close personal connections to Seer. So that's going to be Sunday afternoon. We're going to record that. And actually, we're really excited because Chris is going to join Pete and I for that interview and that conversation. So if you are not a patron, now's the time to join. You can hang out with us Sunday afternoon when we talk to Deborah. And if you aren't and you miss it, it will be in the podcast stream coming up in the next couple of weeks. And so we're still excited to share that conversation with you. So we wanted to tell you about that. The other thing, and I say this with just a little bit of an ache in my heart because I'm going to miss out. The FOMO is already real. On Sunday, June the 4th, there it is. Pete and Chris are going to be on stage at Fan Expo in Philadelphia doing a panel called Growing Up Star Wars. So a live version of Force Connect. These two brilliant gentlemen are going to talk about something that we talk about on this show all the time, what it means to have grown up with Star Wars, the different generations, how it's been treated, received, entered into. It's going to be a great conversation. I hope a bunch of people show up and pepper you with questions, heckle you. I know some friends that are coming, so I may pay them to, be obnoxious on my behalf. But if you're going to be in Philadelphia, if you live in the Philadelphia area, you should go check that out on Sunday, June the 4th. It's going to be awesome, and I'm excited for you guys to put that on.
And I'll have stickers. So if you want stickers, come and see us. I mean, who doesn't want stickers?
Right.
Everybody wants stickers.
Who doesn't want free stuff?
I don't know. It depends on what it is. Depends on what it is. So let's get this party started. In 2017, The Last Jedi hit movie theaters, directed and written by Mr. Ryan Johnson, who liked our tweet, so he could pop up at any minute. I don't know if he's going to or not, but it'll be wild.
If I fall out of this chair, it'll be because Ryan Johnson pops up in the background of this StreamYard. I'll tell you right now.
Or you've emptied that bottle, one of the two.
Or this bottle's empty, one of the two.
But so Last Jedi came out, and it was a very, you know what? Honestly, I think from the moment it came out, it was different.
Universally well received.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna throw this around to all of you to get your perspective on how you felt when you walked out of it. But I'll start with me because I'm in the big box right now. When I walked out of that movie, I literally said to my friend, it was the Thursday night showing, the special fan showing. I remember it was like AT&T or Verizon or somebody had like a special event, and I walked out and I said to him, that was both the best and worst Star Wars movie I'd ever seen. And I felt that way because it was so different. It went against my expectations so much that I didn't know how to initially respond to it. When I went back the next night, because that's what you do with Star Wars movies, I walked out of it. I was like, yeah, that was actually really, really good. I think it's a fantastic Star Wars story. It's not necessarily the Star Wars movie I put in every time I'm going to watch a Star Wars movie, but it's definitely among my favorites. Patrick, where does it come down for you? And what was your initial reaction when you walked out of the theater back in the day?
Yeah, let's see. I saw it at the AMC on 34th Street in New York City. In my screening was Logan Roy himself, Brian Cox, with multiple children. I don't know why he was there. I don't know who these kids were. I don't think he had young children, but he was there. It's high up for me. It's probably 2 or 3, I think.
Mm-hmm.
New Hope is number 1 for me. And then, I mean, I love Empire, I love Jedi, but I also love Phantom Menace a lot. I think it's probably number 2 is what I would put it. I have a wild ranking. My ranking is bizarre.
Patrick's ranking of the Star Wars movies is basically the equivalent of the Hatchet order of watching the Star Wars movies.
For sure. But then you got to throw the Ewok movies in there too. It's a whole, there's a lot of stuff going on. No, I love Last Jedi. I do. I think it'd probably be number 2. When I saw it, some stuff had been spoiled, so I knew a little bit going in, but that's fine with me. I like spoilers. I like following the spoiler, subreddits and stuff, just because I like to see the insane things that people are like, no, my uncle's cousin told me this is true, like all that stuff.
Yeah,
right.
So that's always very fun for me. So I knew a little bit going in, but it was definitely, it was a lot of what I wanted in a Star Wars movie. It didn't feel like a rehash. It didn't feel, stale or anything. It was a new thing, and it felt like an expansion of this galaxy that, every movie's different, and every movie brings something new to the table, but this one really felt like it upped the ante in a way that I really enjoyed. And I never thought it was going to be as divisive as it is, and it makes me sad that it's divisive as it is. And I think that a lot of people have dug their heels into the ground once they decided that they wanted to be on that side of the aisle.
Yep.
And are too invested in that thought process to maybe get out of there, in the same way that I think some people feel about the prequels, where it's just like, no, this was my decision in 1999 and I'm sticking with it. I am not going to revisit those movies, all that stuff. And you know what? more power to you. People can like or dislike a movie, but if you're being a dork online about it or harassing people, then that's too much. That's too much.
100%.
Relax. It's a movie. It's a silly movie for kids. Let's come on, guys. What are we doing?
Right. There's space magic and yep. Chris, what about you, Chris? When tell us about your experience with the first time you saw The Last Jedi.
I mean, I walked out loving it, just because I'm that kind of Star Wars. I'm a shill, and but there were points in the movie, and I hate that this is how I have to watch Star Wars stuff nowadays. Is I was like, oh, this I was and I did not mind the Canto Bite stuff at all. I liked it. But I watching that in my head, I'm like, oh, I can hear the bitching now. I can hear it all happening. I know what's going to happen. So that kind of hindered the enjoyment a little bit. When probably my favorite moment in the movie when Kylo struck Snoke down the way he did, and I don't know if I told you guys, I literally I was like, ha! I did that when Snoke's death happened, because it made so much sense. Like, see, he's not, I keep telling people he's not the end all be all as far as the villains go. Yeah. But I was also like, oh, what's it going to be like when I get on? I think I was on Facebook at the time or something like that. Like, oh, it's going to get ugly. But I still wound up loving that movie. Like, when I walked out of the theater, one of my friends was first in line, ready to walk in for the next viewing, and I was like, man, I wish I was you right now, just to see it all over again. Yep. So that's pretty much where I was. But yeah, I kind of love that movie. I loved it. I don't know where it is. I don't like to do the rankings and whatnot, but it's exceptional. It is, and I love that it was different. I didn't want a rehash of anything like what they try. I'm not going to start riffing on Force Awakens, but with I'm glad that they did something that was far different, because if there's one thing that Star Wars needs, maybe not a rehash of traditions and whatnot that we know, but new traditions need to come out of it. And I thought The Last Jedi was a perfect vehicle for that. So.
And that might be why Andor is so critically acclaimed, because it's a different way to tell a Star Wars story. It's a very different way. You don't even have to be a Star Wars fan to enjoy that. You don't even need to be a sci-fi fan. It's just a cool way to tell a story. So yeah, I think you're onto something there. Nick, what about you? When you walked out of the theater, what were you thinking?
It's similar to all of you guys. I saw it here in Montgomery at the Rave Motion Pictures, right across the street from my house. I went to the midnight show, and like you, Pete, I left and I just went, I don't know what just happened. Like, I was confused. I wasn't mad. I was very middle of the road. I was just like, what did I just watch? And what I have figured out as I get older, and certainly as I learn to appreciate storytelling more and movies and that kind of thing, when I feel that way, that means something good has happened, because there's nothing wrong with the fast movies. Like, that's its own genre of 10 movies of craziness that you can literally just sit down and enjoy, and they're going to all be the same, but they can be good. Or, Mission Impossible, the Mission Impossible series, like, it's kind of the same movie over and over again, but it's good. You know what you're getting. When you get something like The Last Jedi, it's going to make you think about it. And those are the movies that ultimately resonate and stick with me. So that was exactly it. I saw it that first night. I left and I went, what the hell was that? I didn't even make it to my second showing. And in the time in between, 24, 36 hours later, whenever it was, I spent that period of time literally thinking back through it beat by beat and just going, oh. And by the time I went and saw it the second time, I was 100% in, and I was so on board, because it's kind of like the thing. And we talk about this, certainly as Star Wars podcasters and that kind of thing. Every time a new show comes out, you watch the first episode, the new episode of Mandalorian. Am I watching it with my content creator brain on, not having, taking notes? What about this? Who's going to get pissed about this? Who's going to whatever? And then the second time I watch it, I'm like, I can just enjoy it. I can take it for, what it is. Book of Boba Fett finale. We've talked about that a million times. The first time I watched it, I was like, what the hell? The second time I watched it, I was like, this is a lot of fun. It's a rancor in the street. Like, what are we talking about? And that was me with Last Jedi. And then as I have lived with it, over these last, 4 or 5 years, whatever it's been, it continues to be, I come back to, the way I've broken it down, Empire is my favorite Star Wars movie, which is very typical for somebody my age. But I believe personally, my stance is that The Last Jedi is the best Star Wars movie. And it has a lot to do with those story points. It has a lot to do, Chris, you didn't want to go there. You lobbed the alley-oop. I'll go ahead and take and throw it down. The Force Awakens brought us all back into Star Wars after, the prequels and got movies going again. And it felt a lot like, oh yeah, I've seen this movie before. This is A New Hope for, 2017 or 15 or whenever it came out. But what we got in The Last Jedi was different, and that's what makes it special. And that's what makes it, I mean, the story of the hubris of the Jedi and Luke Skywalker dealing with that is, to me, one of the most powerful things that you can see in storytelling. And of course, as a parent, and I talk about this way too much, when Luke sits with Yoda and Yoda says, we are what they grow beyond. That's the true burden of a master. Like, that's me as a parent. Like, it hit me in ways, that movie hit me in ways when I saw it 4 or 5 years ago as a guy who has 4 kids who were all alive at that point. Way different than it would have hit me if I had seen that movie 20 years ago. And it's life. And that's, I think, a lot of what art does for us is we receive it at different stages of life, and it tells us and means different things to us.
Yeah. Patrick, what are your thoughts on why it was so divisive? Like, what is the thing about this movie that has fans kind of like fighting about it?
Well, I think it's very similar. I want to be very careful with my words here. I think it's very similar to people's reaction to Book of Boba Fett, in that they built up what they wanted Luke to be for so long, and they were given many books and video games and comics and whatever, where Luke was, the guy who was, running the world and basically, all that stuff. And then when that didn't happen exactly the way that these external things had validated their thoughts in their mind, when that did not happen, they got sad. And then I also think, the same thing with Boba. It's the exact same thing with Boba. I also think that, it makes a lot of people confront their own aging and mortality, and that they are not children anymore, and that life moves on, and sometimes people aren't the same as they were 20 years ago, and you can't always be friends with the people that you were when you were kids, And I think that that's a very scary thing for a lot of people out there, especially people who spend a lot of their days only online, exclusively interacting with people there. And I, being confronted with that in a familiar world that is frozen in time in your brain as a 6-year-old, being like, well, Luke was my friend when I was a kid, and now I don't agree with what he's doing, so I'm mad, like that kind of stuff. I just think it's a lot to take in for a lot of people, and it's, there's so many things out there for the Legends material where it's just like, if that's what you want it to be, it can still be that. You can still only read that. You don't have to watch new Star Wars stuff. You don't have to. It's fine. Like, it's going to be fine without you. We will still watch it and enjoy it, and that's totally okay. You can move on with your life, go find new interests, go find new hobbies, and that's totally cool. When people tell me they're like, oh, I don't really like the new Star Wars stuff, I'm like, okay, that's all right.
Cool.
I like Kenobi. I like Book of Boba Fett. I probably like it for different reasons than you would. I like it because it's like, oh, look, there's a dude in a weird mask over there. That's cool. Like, that's what I want out of it,
Right.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it's just that the confrontation of, oh, life is different than I thought it was going to be. Maybe I'm not in the place that I want to be in my life, and this is reminding me of that.
It's interesting. I've had conversations. There's this one guy who DMs me all the time out of nowhere, and it's weird. But I don't know why I haven't blocked him. I think I have some sort of weird. It's either pity or masochism or something, or maybe I just want to understand the point of view, and it never is understandable thoroughly. However, at one point I did say, good fiction reflects the world and reflects where you are. And he literally came right out and said, that's not what I want in a Star Wars movie. I want adventure and I want the heroes. And you know what? If people could stop there
Yeah.
and make that their point, I would totally respect that, because that's why I watch the Marvel movies, because they're just big, dumb fun, right? And of course, there's more going on, but like the Marvel movies, more than any other series of movies in my lifetime, are just the biggest, broadest, colorful, fun action movies you can have. So that's fine. It's when they start to say, and there's an agenda, which is not what it is. That's a defensive mechanism to try to get themselves through exactly what you were talking about, Patrick, is there's more to this movie that I don't really want to deal with. And you made a point. You said the word before, Patrick, across the aisle, right? And I think what's interesting about that too is, and distressing, and we'll probably get into this a little bit more, maybe after the break, but it has become a political, and we don't have to get into individual politics here because that's not what we do.
But we should. We should, though.
We should. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Ron DeSantis.
Just like Thanksgiving dinner. Just like Thanksgiving dinner.
Huddle in. Let's talk about who you're voting for.
Chris has got to go all of a sudden.
But it's interesting that it's taking on, The Last Jedi has become sort of the platform for the objections to where people believe Disney is taking Star Wars, and that's an interesting point. And I don't know. Does anybody have any comments on that, or maybe I'm just?
I do also think that TW's comment down there where it says, "I really love it now. Taking time to sit with it helped." I think that's a really
absolutely
important and like I don't want to say brave, but it's a brave thing to say, because I think a lot of people who watch it, they watched it once and then they're like, "That's my decision." I said this already. It's like, that's my decision. I'm sticking with it. I'm not changing. This is it. And I think being able to sit with it and like form actual opinions, not just knee-jerk reactions, and not just, this is what I think, and this is, I'm writing it in a freaking stone tablet, and that's how it's going to be forever. It's important that people can like actually have some media literacy and like actually cognitively think about, what they're watching in front of them.
Well, and I think it's also letting it become more to you. So, for example, and I have said this 1,000 times, this is the reason why I wrote my 123,000 word fan fiction novelization of The Phantom Menace. I did not like that movie. It took me literally 20 years to get to a point where I'm like, you know what? I kind of like this movie. And now, honestly, as I said before, it's the Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars story. But The Phantom Menace is a movie that I can infinitely watch. It's just a very watchable, fun movie. But it took me a long time to get there, because when I walked in 1999, I brought with me all that baggage, and it needs to be this, it needs to be that. Hey, TW, why don't you call in? You can call in if you want. We can actually talk to you about this stuff. That'd be great.
Love to hear from you.
But yeah, so there's been a lot of I think it takes growth, and it's hard to get there sometimes, I guess. So
I mean, that's the one thing with these movies. Like you gotta, whenever something new comes out for Star Wars, and there's this knee-jerk reaction that it's not like what I've seen before, or it's not like the original trilogy. And like, no, it's not. It's something. It's still Star Wars, but it's something different. You gotta, and I say this to people all the time, you just gotta let shit marinate. You gotta just give it a minute. Like for me, on a lighter level, for me, I was like, these ships and whatnot. Like when I was as far as the Phantom Menace goes, I was like, it doesn't seem like very Star Wars, yada yada yada. And then like after a little bit, I'm like, no, this is very much Star Wars. Like you just gotta give things time, and you gotta get that stick out of your ass and just like give these movies maybe a second chance, or not a second. I hate to say second chance. That makes it seem like it's already bad or some shit, or like I'm pleading. But you gotta like give it another look. Like when people would crap all over Boba Fett and whatnot, like you guys are saying. Yet when you're watching these things, it's like you're just looking to make sure, like, what's in there, what are they doing? Yeah, you're watching as a content creator, or someone who just wants to make sure that that thing that they want out of a Boba Fett story are in there, and then they don't watch it again, and they're like, this was shit. But they don't watch it again. They have to slow down, watch it one more time. Like I've had to say that to some people who have like the attention span of a small salad bar, and they can't. They just don't. They don't get it. They don't. They just can't wrap their head around it. I'm like, just watch it, slow down, watch it again.
Yep.
And then 9 times out of 10, it's yeah, that was awesome. Watching it the second time around, like after I got all that other stuff out of my head and just watched it for what it was, and you can see that it's a lot better than what you initially thought it was.
100%. And I think I think that's the biggest challenge facing Star Wars in this current era. We're at a point where all of us here on the screen, we had to wait 3 years between movies, and there wasn't a lot in between. And if you weren't a book reader, you were stuck. And if you weren't a comics guy, there was nothing. So we're in a different spot. Well, we want to hear from you. We want you to dial in, give us your calls. We put the link up in the chat. We'll continue to put it up there. We want to hear from you. How did The Last Jedi hit you? What are your thoughts on The Last Jedi now? I can't do the math real quick. What is it? 6 years later, right? 6? 5.5, 2019, 2017. If we're going to do a show about a movie, the least I can do is get the year right. Yes. So all this time later, we would love to hear from you.
A long time ago, far, far away.
Right. Not so far away. We want to hear your opinions on The Last Jedi. We're going to start taking your calls in just a minute. Your opportunity to hang out and talk with Mr. Patrick Kottner. And we'll be back in just 1 minute with more Force Connect.
All right, I'm doing this in one take. I hope you're all ready. All right. Do you like t-shirts with sayings and logos that are bordering on that very fine line of copyright infringement, but still very Star Wars in the way they do things? Do you like some of the weird stuff that Pete, Nick, and Chris say on their shows like Force Connect and Around the Galaxy? Of course you do. Then you need some of our t-shirts and mugs and stickers and sweatshirts, and I can't believe you guys are selling all this stuff. You can go to SSWNetworkshop.com, or you can scan the QR code in the corner there, and you can get this stuff. I don't know why you might want to, but hey, everybody likes a deal, eh? And since you like a deal, use code WATO20 and you'll get 20% off your order. That's right, use code WATO20. Head on over to SSWNetworkshop.com today or scan the QR code. I'll make you a deal, eh?
I realized when I hit play on that I'm doing a Watto impression in front of the guy who's works
for somebody who works directly with Watto.
I work with him. I spend a lot of time with him. It's like when someone, like if John Hamm goes on SNL and they do a Mad Men parody, and they're like, "Well, no, I know the real guys. Like, you can do the impression, but I'm with him all the time."
Oh man. So we are back. We are talking about The Last Jedi. We want to hear from you. We have some callers lined up in the back. The link is in the chat right now. Hit that link, give us your thoughts. But Nick, if you're ready, why don't we bring in our first caller?
All right, let's do it.
Hello.
Zillow gang.
It's the Zillow guy. What's up? It's Eric. Eric,
I'm doing it right. I'm back from the 4-year anniversary of Bombadcast. I was the last person to speak up there. I saw Nick up there.
You survived.
Eric, not only was Eric there, Eric sat through all 4.5 hours to be the very last guest that they had on before they wrapped up.
Yes, I did that outro
last night.
This is why we had you on first tonight, because you need to get your sleep.
That's right. We got to get Eric to bed.
I got my sleep.
So Eric, we are talking about The Last Jedi. I am going to hit that timer, and let's hear your thoughts on Last Jedi.
I'm just going to list everything I got written, and then we can.
And you know, we're not going to be too super strict, but we got to start somewhere. So here we go.
So many fans were so obsessed with what didn't happen, they missed what did happen. Star Wars fans don't want there to be this meta-contextual de-idolization of Luke Skywalker. They wanted mindless spectacle, lazy fan service, and a list of checklists of absurd theories. Luke Skywalker plays the Kenobi Yoda role from the original trilogy. Canto Bight has social, political, and thematic depth to the film. Luke has a stronger arc in The Last Jedi than the entire original trilogy. Rose is a good character, and she's the reason that Finn actually has a character arc to become a hero. Snoke is only important to Kylo's arc. We don't need backstory. We don't need, see him back when he had, slick back hair and he was a greaser out in these Star Wars streets. We don't need that. Poe, though, was right to not tell Poe the plan. because
Right.
he just got the bombing fleet
Chain of
destroyed.
command.
I'm like, anyone that says, "Oh, she should have done this, she should have done this," like you had nothing about military.
Yep, for sure.
Like,
Yep.
and they were so fixated on these minute issues that they blew out of proportion, where they claimed, I'm going to use it only for this context, but there's an agenda, or
Right.
they're doing this or doing that, or like it's undoing what George Lucas did. They got so in their heels about what didn't happen that they once again they missed what did happen, and then they started making like an echo chamber of like saying, "Oh, this is this and this is that," and you have YouTubers like freaking Mahler and Vito like making 2-hour videos just complaining about stuff that makes no sense.
Yep. I think. Oh, you did it. That's impressive. Very good.
First of all, Eric rattled that off like he sat in the room with Ryan Johnson and they wrote this movie together. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yep.
Yeah, no, you cut a promo, man. That was some AEW style promo you just cut. I love
Thank
it.
you for letting me rap.
It was great.
That's perfect. I like your point about people forgetting or going in and expecting something and not getting it, and then losing sight of everything else that they
Absolutely.
didn't get. And I always go back to you have the fact that you had so many people who they go back to the comic book pages where Luke was literally attacking some walkers with a lightsaber. You got that scene. You got a variation of that scene. And it's, I don't know, you nailed it. I think we could end the show actually.
Well,
That was,
and I will also
Mic drop.
add, Eric said another word that I think is in this discourse with this particular movie. It comes up a lot, but it really does apply. The word meta, the meta narrative of this movie that applies to, I mean, it's in the trailer. Luke Skywalker says it himself, but Ryan Johnson is talking to these fans and he says, this isn't going to go the way you think. And there we are again, putting expectations on art. Putting expectations on art is one of the more dangerous things you can do, because when art doesn't go your way, you think that you've been wronged, you've been screwed over. But that's not how art works. Art is open and subjective and is available for, like Patrick said earlier, if you don't like it, don't watch it. Like, watch the ones you like, let the other ones be for somebody else.
It's so simple.
It seems like it should be.
yeah, but there's no money in liking things. That's the problem.
One of the
Certainly
big
not on
issues,
the internet.
Yeah, one of the big issues was from the minute Force Awakens ended until right before everyone sat in their seats to watch The Last Jedi. There were 2 years of this deluge of the dumbest theory of, like, what happened, who was this, what's going to happen, that sort of thing, and everyone was wrong. And but it just the Last Jedi had to it was in an unenviable position to even come close to anything that fans were looking for. And I love that it took everything that people thought was going to happen and they just switched it on everyone. I thought that was beautiful. I thought it was beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. I agree 100%. Well, Eric, any last thoughts on The Last Jedi?
I think Last Jedi is, the best, like as far as like editing, cinematography, music, and it is also my favorite movie. Period.
That's great. I was going to just ask you, where does
Love
it
that.
rank? And that's awesome.
Wow.
Well, Eric, you've kept the streak alive. We will see you next week. And there's a new Honest to Claude out there, right? People can go check that out.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
for
so-
shouting me out.
Absolutely, man.
I would really love it if you were like, it's my favorite movie, period. It is my third favorite Star Wars movie, though.
Oh, man. Well, Eric, thank you so much, man. We will talk to you again very soon.
Later.
That was he's always got something really, really cool to say. Patrick, any comments on anything he said that stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, he said everything that I agree.
He
with.
basically gave us the
I
whole
agree,
movie.
You know, he really wrapped it up very concisely in a way that I wish more people would listen to what he said, because I think it's a lot of very important things to keep in mind while you're watching that movie.
Yeah, it's a matter of trying to push people to open their minds that much, and it's funny because, and I hope somebody calls that doesn't like the movie, because I really want to hear that perspective. And I'm not saying we're right. Sorry, Chris. I know, but I want to understand where it comes from. And I think one of the points that either Eric made or we made in response to his comments was, if you go and you watch Star Wars from 1977 today, never mind the pacing and all the stuff that comes with being a movie that's 46 years old, you're accepting a whole lot on face value. You're accepting a whole lot about a universe that there's no background on. I mean, I still remember when Kenobi dropped the line about the Clone Wars. Me and my dad talked about that for 10, 15 years. Like, what is the Clone Wars? What was it? What was it all about? Because we didn't know. We didn't know. So I don't know. Yeah, why don't we bring in Angry Tasty Cakes here for the next
Let's
call,
do it.
and then we'll keep talking.
Grief Karga said you were coming.
There he is. Where is he? Whoops, I put up the wrong screen. Look,
I was about to.
Yeah, you could look over that one. Look through into this
on,
one.
Pete. What are
There
we
we
doing
go.
here?
I know.
Pull my
I
inner
know.
Kaminoan neck.
Yes. What are you up to, man? How are you? Welcome back. Another week, another call. How's it going?
Oh, Twitter was on fire.
Oh, God.
Oh, what was this week? I didn't even
What
remember
happened
this
now?
week was.
Oh, just the whole I thought I was gonna have a good day, and I logged in, and I was like Ray Stevenson, and then
No.
then I saw that we were talking The Last Jedi, and I went, oh God, and then yeah. So here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Where? Let's just start with your thoughts on The Last Jedi broadly. Are you a fan? Where does it fit into your rankings?
75% like, 25% dislike.
All right.
It's a solid like middle B tier for me. Not awful, but not my favorite.
Fair.
That's
Totally
a
fair.
fascinating. I feel like you never hear that. It's either boom or boom. You know, it's never.
Because like for everything that they did right, like for every 5 steps forward that they took 1 back. And that's kind of where it settled for me on the scale. Like, all right,
So
I can see.
Yeah.
Huh?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Like Chris said, it had to marinate. I think I saw it 9 times in theaters. Right,
Okay.
like I came out of it the first time, I was like, I hate it. I don't like it. And then I saw the ticket booth, and I was like, shit. And I bought another one, and I went right in and saw it a second time. 6
Same
hours
day?
later, you know,
Wow.
like.
Beautiful.
And I came out and I was just like, okay, I hate that I'm starting, but I can kind of see what they like. Okay. A week later, I saw it again 2 more times, you know, and it started like making sense to me the more I kind of sat down and watched it and kind of just, like you said, let it marinate. At first, it was like a shock to my system, you know, like to me, it wasn't as what I grew up with, you know, but then I got to thinking about it and I was like, oh, okay. And then I started to realize that a lot of my issues with the movie wasn't necessarily. I love Kelly Marie Tran. It had nothing to do with her. Okay, I love her.
Yeah.
I just didn't care for Rose all that much. I think if her sister was still in the movie, it would have made a little bit more sense to kind of have that back and forth between the two. At least for me. But a lot of my issues started to become like continuity oriented. Like, for instance, the one that pops out to me the most is the Battle of Crate, right? Finn is hauling towards that cannon. She's already halfway across back to the base and everything. So they're easily like 3 miles apart, but then she appears in front and knocks him off. And I was sitting there going, what? Like that you know,
It's the Force, man.
But you know,
That's
Angry,
how they
love
did
will
it.
do that to you.
Yeah,
that's
right.
what love does to you.
It's like the orcs from Warhammer 40K. You know, they paint their stuff red to think that goes faster, so it does.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up. That point too. It's definitely like the orcs
Patrick,
from Warhammer
Patrick,
40K. I don't want to hop in, but that was definitely my thought.
You know, they believe it and it happens, right? So it was just a lot of continuity things, and I'm gonna have to disagree. I don't like the Canto Bite sequence. I like when they show up and she has that, you know, that monologue on top of the balcony. I really like that part. And but the rest of it I feel like could have been cut out and it wouldn't have done anything to hurt the movie.
Spectacle.
Yeah.
Well,
and I think that's really what
I'll say. I'll add to that, just as far as that scene is concerned. My favorite part of the Canto Bite scene is the behind the scenes Canto Bite stuff where they show all the people coming in that they're dressing up, the really tall model thin ladies, the like super like 80, 90-year-old people that they're dressing in alien gear. Like, I love that. And then of course I love the Goodfellas-esque one shot coming all the way through the casino. Like, as somebody who loves Goodfellas, loves behind the scenes and how you do that kind of stuff, like that to me is what makes the Canto Bite scene, is knowing that's how they did all that.
Yeah, so it was stuff like that, you know, like I can appreciate it, but if they removed it, it wouldn't have done anything for me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's like so many good things about it. I love the cinematography. I think this movie had the best cinematography out of this sequel trilogy, hands down. The colors they chose, I was like, damn, right? Like Crate, the white and the red. I was immediately drawn to what was happening on that screen. I thought that was awesome. And like Eric brought up the whole idea of it being meta, and I was about to say that too. And I was like,
damn it.
Because like when Kylo says, no, you're still holding on, like you have to let go, I feel like that line was directed immediately at us.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. Like we're so caught up in the idea of what Star Wars was, not what it could be. And that was like, it hit me, and I was like, oh, I see what you're doing. Like it, I like it, I hate you. I love it. So like, it was like, I feel like this movie was Rian Johnson's attempt to pass the torch officially, to start like the Olympic marathon, to pass that torch. When Yoda comes in and destroys the books, and he's just like, you don't need them. You don't. And I feel like that's part of the reason Yoda lost, is that he was too hung up on what the Jedi were. He couldn't see past, you know, what was happening, what the Jedi could be. He was too concerned about the books, and then it took his death to be like, you really don't need them. What you have in here is what ultimately matters, not what's in a book. Like, you can teach your student everything, but they're going to take that and run with it.
Well, and I think that's where my biggest thing is, I get your continuity comment, and I just think, like with Star Wars, unfortunately, I throw that out every single thing I look at, which is fine.
Fire in space, Pete. Fire in space.
Fire in space.
Sound in space.
And sound,
And sound.
But the point about throwing it out and starting it over, I think is very accurate. In fact, that's why I walked out of Last Jedi the way I did, because I felt like it was done. I didn't need a third movie.
Right.
I felt like they could, and that goes back to my only critique of the sequels is George got lucky and got away with not having a plan mapped out on a whiteboard with string and plans. J.J. Abrams to Rian Johnson to a mess, and then back to J.J. Abrams led to some disconnects, which I think, and I really love what Rian Johnson said when he was on Podathon. He said, you know, you leave everything out there. You know, you don't think ahead to the sequel, which he didn't. I mean, that movie ended, and you could have been like, okay,
I'm good.
That's where we are.
And it's so funny. And just if you bring it from that angle and that perspective, one of the big critiques that you certainly hear from the people who, I want it to be this way, I want it to just be Jedis and laser swords and whatever, is Rian Johnson didn't put Luke on that mountain isolated by himself. J.J. Abrams did that. That was a J.J. Abrams story point. That first movie wasn't written by Rian Johnson.
Yeah.
J. Abrams made the decision for him to be isolated in a way. Rian Johnson had to pick up that ball and figure out what to do with it. I personally love what he did with it because that story of this is where the Jedi failed. And it points us back to the things that we complained about with the prequels when we went, how did they not know? How were they blinded? How were they like the hubris of the Jedi? Like all of those things for people who spend too much time thinking about Star Wars, it actually spoke directly to those points. And then, we get to, the third act and it becomes kind of its own separate whatever. Patrick, I feel like you had something to throw in there.
I was just going to say, I also feel like I don't want the idea of, JJ put him on that island to be like a bad thing, because I do think it's a good idea.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think it's a good, interesting idea.
Yeah. 100%.
You know what? I think I'm maybe warmer on Force Awakens than a lot of people here, and that's fine. It's very hard to make.
I loved it too.
Great.
Yeah,
I
love
love
it.
it.
I love it.
I do love it. My thing with it, and the way I said it earlier, I didn't voice it well. I love that Force Awakens brought us back into Star Wars, and it did feel like home.
It was what it needed to be. It
Correct.
needed to be
That's
to get people to come back and to, whatever.
And then Last Jedi pointed us in a new direction we were excited about. And then we got to Rise of Skywalker, and it just became a different thing.
But we're not here to talk about that today.
No, we're not.
Maybe next week.
I'll bring Patrick back for Rise of Skywalker, and it'll be all Boolio,
My schedule,
all Boolio,
really
and the
full,
tank
guys.
driver.
What was I going to say? But it's a good and interesting idea to put him on that island. And I do think, I agree. I wish there was more, people working together in order to make the story happen. I don't put that blame on Ryan. I don't even necessarily put that blame on JJ.
Right.
I do think I wish there were more forceful hands, no pun intended, behind the scenes, like being like, well, you guys got to work together because this movie's got to happen,
Yep.
and not even work together because Ryan was done at that point. But you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
Awesome. Well, we're going to take one more break. Thank you so much, Angry Tasty Cakes, for keeping it going, keeping that streak alive. We'll take one more break. We got a couple callers left, and we're going to keep on talking about The Last Jedi.
Pete Fletcher of ATG Cast is a Disney shill. Oh yeah, big time Disney shill.
I believe that you are a certified daddy. Like Pedro Pascal's a daddy. Like,
right.
Certified daddy.
He interviewed this guy. Like, how does this guy, who's not even monetized on YouTube, get this interview?
So how did you know? Because I'm a nerd.
The only live Star Wars fan talk show that takes your calls. Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time.
You will not meet nicer people. I'm at point. There and there.
All right, where's something that he was shilling? I know I saw some, bad stuff from him this week. He got another interview. What a shill.
Yeah. And now, I get to cap it off with the best of all and be coming back to a show that I dearly love and admire. So thanks for having me.
We keep it honest and real, make room for constructive disagreement, and have a zero tolerance for jerks.
I'm an asshole, just so everybody knows.
We are OG OT fans.
Wedge was obviously a character that you had to use if you were going to do Rogue Squadrons.
And we recognize the gift of Star Wars living on for another generation and beyond.
The galaxy isn't growing to push people out. It's growing to let more people come in.
I'm not seeing anything too chilly, even though it's bad. See, he knows he's a shill. He embraces that he's a shill.
No.
No one watches his channel. He's getting all these interviews on his channel. How does he pull that off? He's definitely connected, and he's a shill.
I have had the best time ever on Around the Galaxy. Thank you so much.
I'm gonna be honest. I haven't seen that in a couple of weeks because I think I was gone last week or we were off last week. Whatever the situation was, I haven't seen that video in a couple of weeks. It makes me laugh out loud every time. The fact that Darth Melvin and all his Knights of Idiots or whatever they are came after you for being a shill, And my favorite part is as he scrolls through, he's like, well, there's not really anything here, but I know he did something. I know he did somewhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely hilarious every time.
It is fun. I love that sort of thing. Well, anyway, welcome back to Force Connect. We have been talking about The Last Jedi. We are joined with our special guest, Patrick Kottner, tonight. Patrick, bring in some more insights, some new insights, and it's interesting. It has been a little bit of a love fest, but we have had a commentator throughout in the chat, TW McKay, who has had some thoughts. We want to bring him in and hear directly from him. So let's bring him in.
Go for Papa Palpatine. You have a collect call from
Darth Vader.
I gotta take this. Hold on.
TW, welcome.
Greetings. Apologies
take-
for not having an image. This was kind of last minute. I had to pull the laptop out.
Can you describe to us what you look like, just so we have an idea?
Hang on a second. I can give you a decent image.
Ooh, okay.
Not of my actual horrifying face. No.
If it's Darth Melvin, it would be awesome.
No, but also speaking of kneecapping oneself before we get running, behold!
There you go.
I'm a Leafs fan, so I'm making this joke about myself.
That's okay.
Nice.
No,
well,
but
our friend Paul Sun Young Lee would appreciate that.
Yeah.
So
it was always so great seeing.
You had some thoughts on your evolution towards becoming a Last Jedi fan. What do you got?
Well, what's funny was I never completely disliked the film. First thing was the cinematography from the hop was just gorgeous. That was already the first thing that I loved about the movie. I think for me it was the sheer shock of seeing everything that Luke was doing in this timeline versus all the Legends material. Because I think the other problem was, at least for me, my problem was, and this could just be me not being as active on the internet back in the day. I was only, I was, pardon me for aging some of the folks here in chat and here, but I was only like 11 years old when Revenge of the Sith came out. So a lot of the crazy online discourse around the prequels had already kind of happened in a way by the time I find YouTube and whatnot. Yes, I'm sorry, Chris. Sorry. But yeah, so it was interesting to kind of see a lot of this stuff happen, and even to an extent being like, I never thought it was full on agenda. What was funny was I kind of agree with some of those people online right up until people started saying that there was an agenda because you had two consecutive films in The Force Awakens and Rogue One who had a woman protagonist. And I'm like, okay, hang on, guys. And then the complaint about Holdo's speech on the ship,
right? Where
it's just like, wait a minute, this is literally what the rebels have been about from the hop. So what's the problem? Is the problem because she has pink hair? I'm like, this is Star Wars, guys.
Yep.
Humans can have crazy hair too. I honestly like the film. But like I said at the beginning, I kind of walked out and part of my brain was like, Luke was a coward. This is all awful. But I still, for a perfect summation of how even with that, I still enjoyed the film. I almost started to cry when Luke died. Not in a bad way.
Yeah.
But it was so beautiful. And I think the best way to describe it is in the novelization that Jason Fry did. What was the line? It was, it began as it ended, or it ended as it began, looking out at two suns before taking a next step into a larger world. Beautiful line, and it summarizes that perfectly. But I think the one thing, if I was to rebut one point about the whole, you're still holding on, let go of that being directed at the audience, I would be more inclined to believe it if that didn't come out of the mouth of the character who was supposed to, at that point in the film, be our main villain.
Right.
Because of course, we're like, wait a minute, no, he's wrong. He's the guy who wants to let everything die.
Right.
Rey wants to let nothing die.
Yeah.
The point of the film and I think the point is that whole "we are what they grow beyond," plus Rey keeping the texts, is that there is value in the past, but we don't need to lionize it. We can look at it objectively And historically, we can look at what worked and what didn't, accept what worked, discard what did not.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it could have been neat if in that moment, like you're saying, TW, if, you know, it was aligned between Luke and Rey. You know, we know Rey had the, you know, the pilot, you know, doll. She's living in the crawler. There's some awareness. There's the legend of Luke Skywalker. There's the legend from Force Awakens of Han Solo. Like, these characters loom larger than life. If there was a conversation between Luke and Rey, and it's, you know, she's like, but you can just come out and you can slay them and whatever. And him telling her that's not how it works.
Right.
You have to let go. That's where that works more than, like you said, hearing it from the villain of the movie. That's really smart. I haven't thought about that way.
And then wrote something else. Yeah, and the other misconception that seems to kind of float around is that people think Luke was on that island for 30 years. He was only on there for just about, what, 7-8 years, Chris, if we're looking at the timeline correctly?
Yep.
Like, yeah. And another thing, when people talk about, this is not to justify Luke's actions, but to contextualize something with regards to age.
Mm.
Ben was not a child. When Luke raised his lightsaber over Ben was 23 years old. He was a man. Basically, like I said, he hadn't lived a normal life by any stretch of the imagination. Getting handed off to your, you know, to train with basically an ascetic at the age of 11. It's like, no one's life's going to be normal like that.
Right. Yep, for sure. No, and I think that's, again, it's the other piece about that that's so important to remember is that it was 3 sides of the story, right? And so,
yes,
we don't know exactly what happened,
and that's kind of the point about the truth. It's like I think, and that's another thing, is it's not to say that that objective truth doesn't exist. It's to say that it does. We just can't really see it.
Right.
There was something that happened. It's just everyone's seeing different, you know, looking at different lenses of the prism, as it were.
Yep,
absolutely,
for sure. Well, thank you so much for giving us that insight, man. I really appreciate the call, and I appreciate you spending some time with us. And I even appreciate the Maple Leafs logo. I'm a Flyers fan, so I haven't seen the playoffs in way too long. So,
hockey you guys are talking about?
Boots with knives on them.
Knives on their feet, Chris.
Oh, that one. That one.
Boots with knives on them. I love that.
All right, T-Dub. Well, thank you so much, my
TW.
friend. Looking forward to hearing from you again sometime soon.
Sounds good. Take care, folks.
See ya.
All right. See ya.
Oh, here we go. Oh, no. There he is.
Okay.
Wow. Thank you.
Patrick's done improv. He knows how to make it work. This is like the sitting, standing, laying down game. You know, just pick one, go for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay sitting if that's okay, though.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That is fine. That's fine. We don't want to have to move the cameras. It's just we get.
I'm wearing soccer shorts. It just ruins the whole illusion of, like, you know, it's not the same.
He's like,
and the reality is the points don't matter, so we just keep going.
It's a great point.
Well, we have time for one more caller. If you'll hang out with us, Patrick, that would be great. And this is a friend of the show, and if you're not following him on TikTok, you're missing daily insights. So let's bring in our next caller.
And who might you be?
Hello
there. How are you?
I'm doing good. And
what's up, man?
It's the great Darth Chaco hanging out.
I gotta say, I never thought about using StreamYard and then using overlays in order to make bot. I just thought that was,
Chaco. I'll give lessons. You can give me a call. I'll help you out with it. But you know what's really important about it is you have to do them right, unlike I have tonight, which has been a little off on it. We'll get there. So, hey, we are talking about The Last Jedi, and I know you're a Last Jedi fan, and I know you have opinions, as your dog does as well. Where do you come in on Last Jedi, and what's your how did you feel when you walked out of the theater, and where are you today on it?
So the credits rolled on the movie, and I turned to my buddy Austin, and I was like, "Oh man, people are gonna love this." For quite a while, it was jockeying for first place with Empire Strikes Back for me.
Mm.
Now, I'm someone I'm all about like the slower character study-ish, type thing. So like, Andor is my jam. Rebels has a lot of that in it. So that's kind of the thing that speaks to me. So I loved The Last Jedi, and was really surprised at some of the backlash that it receives. Now, I'm by no means thinking it's a perfect movie. There's a few parts that do frustrate me, especially when like BB-8 jams his head into electrical leaks. It's like, what the hell is happening?
It's the Force, man. It's the Force.
That's not how the Force works.
And then, so I mean, there's a few like comedy beats that didn't work. But one of them didn't work until it did, and it's BB-8. But when BB-8 is driving the walker, I was like at first I was incredulous, and then I realized that the expression on my face was identical to John Boyega's in that scene. And I was like, oh, so they know that's ridiculous.
They get it. They all get it.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And I mean, and then like it sinks in, because I also, my number 3 Star Wars film is Return of the Jedi. And when you have, Ewoks on gliders making Tarzan sounds and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean,
What
Star Wars is camp. It's camp, and you gotta embrace it.
Yep.
Absolutely love it. And I think I don't think I think most other Star Wars films, we honestly don't see much character development on screen. We see stuff happen to the people. They don't change.
Right.
The movie ends, and then when we see them next, they have changed because of what we just saw. Right. That's kind of what how I feel most of them play out. Right. And this was the first one where we actually see the stuff happening on screen and them changing as the story is playing out. And I thought that was incredible. It leads to some weird conversation. Like I had someone say that Rise of Skywalker retconned Luke because he caught the lightsaber and said the Jedi's weapon deserves more respect. And you're like, no, that's not a retcon. That's regular continuity.
Yeah.
That's like that's him learning a lesson.
That's
in
character development.
Right.
Yeah, like isn't that what we want? I know that's that's how I feel.
Oh, that's great. It's and why do you think the question that we've talked about a couple different times tonight is, why do you think it is such a divisive film? What is it about it that has it where it is right now in the conversation?
Oh, people's headcanon. I mean, that's really all it is.
And
and it came out at an unfortunate time in the United States political and social situation, and that had a lot to do with it as well.
Hey, what happened?
What did I miss?
Patrick's been in like Bucky Barnes cryo freeze for a minute, so don't mind him.
No, but I'm someone, I absolutely love the expanded universe. I've read almost, half. I was going to say almost all. And like, no, that's not true.
That's not true. That's impossible.
Yeah. When you look at the movies and what is canon, we actually have zero information on Luke as a Jedi. Return of the Jedi ends with him becoming a Jedi, and that's all we have, right? So you can't say anything is out of character because we got the origin story and then nothing, and then 30 years later. The big problem is that we need Luke stories in between.
Right.
And, even in the making of, and in the art of books, they talk about what they considered the Luke problem, because whenever Luke came on screen, it was like, well, what's he been up to? You know what I mean? Like I want to see stuff about him, and that's just not what the movie was about. And I guess, I mean, you can question that all day, but ultimately we just waited too long to get that.
What we need is we need the Legends of Luke Skywalker which is a compendium of stories about a bunch of kids on the deck of a ship hearing the legends and stories about Luke Skywalker.
But
interesting book. If I ever have to hear about Luke Clod Plotter again, I'm gonna like hurl something.
But you bring up an interesting point in that headcanon is the problem, because the problem that the fandom menace picked up on was Mark Hamill's headcanon. And Mark Hamill, and I'm sure to this day, I don't know him, of course, but I'm sure to this day he regrets having said out loud what he did, because those were conversations he had with Ryan, which happened, I don't know, Patrick, probably all the time on set, right? The actor and the director saying,
look, I disagree with almost everything I've ever worked on. So I get it. I say the same things constantly. No, that's a regular thing. Like, you're talking through your thoughts and you want to like get on the same page about things. And I don't want to speak for him, but I feel like maybe the way it was brought up initially into the press was maybe not the best way, or if they're clipping certain things that he says without being like, but I learned to accept it, and I learned that this is not my story anymore, and this is the next person's, like, that's the important part of that sentence is like,
right.
Yes, I understand, but again, sometimes life doesn't turn out the way I want it to for somebody, and this is, it's their story now. I need to move on with that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun because because we actually do have those conversations. There was one in particular where Mark Hamill was doing an interview for oh my goodness, I can't remember. It was like a medieval show or something like that. But yeah, he basically says that exact thing. He's like, yeah, I regret saying anything because people will try and clip whatever to serve whatever agenda they have. And he'll look, and he says, he just kind of runs his mouth and then sees something later in the news and he's like, did I say that?
It's like Urkel, did I do that?
and also I got receipts. I'll have to find them later, but I've literally, because that conversation comes up way too many times, I've had to collect every all the sources. But yeah, when it comes to, so it's headcanon, and it's also what we call the Superman problem.
Yes.
So I keep seeing, in my opinion, the best showcase of Jedi Luke Skywalker was Luke in Battlefront 2. He's on a mission. He runs into Del Meeko. He's there with the enemy. He doesn't attack. He doesn't want to hurt him. He doesn't even stop him on his mission. He's like, can I take this thing? And like that is Luke. That is a Jedi. That is someone who is on a mission for the peace and security of the galaxy, but he's not there to kill people. And him and the Mandalorian was cool, seeing him use his lightsaber and tear through the droids. There's a reason those were droids. And so when you say, I want to see him crushing those walkers, with his hands and looking like he ain't Star Killer, man. Like that's if your problem with the Jedi of the prequels was their involvement in the war, and then your problem with this is he didn't get involved in the war. But you also love Revan, who his Jedi Council said not to get involved in the war, and he did. Like, I don't know what you want, man. Right. You gotta be consistent of that. But yeah, he has the Superman problem where bad things happen, and the only way for the Jedi to prevent anything bad from happening would be to rule the galaxy, which is not anything that they're ever trying to do. Right. So I think this. Honestly, I've sat there and thought about it, and I can't really think of, given the setup that he got from JJ, I can't think of a better way to tie in all of the Star Wars mythos, the history of the Jedi, what he should do, and it's just the trolley problem, right? Do I tack one to save all these? Well, what if that one is your nephew? Well, what if the people you're saving is everything and everyone you've ever loved? And if you're telling me that he wouldn't hesitate. Like that wouldn't be a thought. He wouldn't consider saving everyone and everything he loved. That'd be out of character.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Well, and you have of course you have the Rashomon. We get the different sides of the story: the Luke, the Kylo, the Rey, the whatever. But that's the other thing that I think sometimes we overlook in this idea of Luke being by himself, being isolated, being whatever. This is somebody who's hurting. He's hurting because of what he may or may not have done or thought about his nephew. Like there was a whole, something going on right then and there. And it's just, that's the human element to me that speaks to, something else that has to be addressed. Like this is a person who's hurting and hiding because there's a shame element. There's a factor of, I could have killed my nephew. There's that whole, it came up a couple weeks ago. What was the intent? He ignited and he stopped because he knew he was wrong and he was ashamed. It wasn't that he was going to, but it was still that moment of human frailty, that moment of weakness that still permeates somebody who's a Jedi, who's supposed to be wise and powerful and whatever.
And that's the thing I find fascinating, is because for a Jedi whose job is to make the decisions based off of the good of the galaxy, what is the right choice there? Obviously, not what happened, but like if you have the weight of all of that, I mean, I don't know. It just makes sense. I just feel for it.
Yep.
But
sorry. Yeah, no, I was just gonna ask for your last thoughts on it, and we'll move on to our next caller. But I just wanted you had one more thought there, it sounded like.
Yeah, just to wrap it up, I also was really happy because we had the Rashomon scene, but we also had something similar with Rey and Kylo, where they both saw the same future for each other, and it happened, but they saw it from different perspectives. So that's a thing that happens, and that's the future always being in motion. We don't actually know what the outcome is because we're projecting onto it, and I think the film also did a really good. I always agree that John Boyega should have gotten more, and I'll never be
100%.
happy with that. However, JJ ended The Force Awakens with him in a coma and with her meeting Luke Skywalker. He was sidelined in The Force Awakens without even finishing his arc. So he was actually at least given an arc that he got to fully realize in this. And even Poe, who was a throwaway character who was supposed to die in the beginning, got an arc. So I'm a fan. I can talk about this forever.
Awesome.
So yeah, we're gonna do more. Anyway,
we're always glad to see
real quick, Chaco. We gotta talk comics sometime soon, man.
Absolutely.
It's gotta happen.
Yes.
Not with these guys because they don't read them, but we're gonna talk comics.
Sounds great.
All right, man.
I read the comics.
All right, no, I'm more talking about Pete and Nick. Those guys.
Okay.
Patrick, Chaco,
they
and Chris.
don't like literature. Yeah.
Wow. That's a mistake.
I live in Alabama. What do you expect from me? I can't read.
Not everyone can appreciate art.
All right. Thanks so much, Chaco. We'll see you again soon, I hope, buddy. Thanks.
Yes. Have a good one.
All right. See you, man.
All right. Well, Patrick, we know we've kept you if we have one more guy, but I know you gotta. You're good. You're good.
You're
All
good.
right.
Good to go.
I want to be mindful of our.
I appreciate it.
Guests, so
I
that's good.
appreciate it.
Well, then let's bring in one last guest for the night. Here we go.
What do you want?
Jeff, how are you?
Gentlemen.
A streaming Star Wars, sorry, we're not streaming Star Wars. We're SSW Network patron. There he is, showing off the guns with Christopher and wearing his Generation X-wing sweatshirt. He didn't go with the cheap T-shirt. He committed.
No, I committed. I'm leaving these hoodies around my house, so it's just I had to get the hoodie.
Fantastic. So, what's your Last Jedi thoughts?
Oh man. So when I walked out of that movie, like you, Pete, I was like, "What the hell?" That movie sucked. I I've come around on it some. But just to be honest and totally transparent here, because this is a safe space, when he took the lightsaber and just flung it over his shoulder, like that just deflated me. I mean, because I went in wanting my Star Wars.
Yep.
So I wasn't going to hear anything else. I wanted my Star Wars. I wanted the original 3 together, charging down the Empire. That's what I wanted. So when it didn't happen, I was like, this sucks. It's not what I wanted. So
they would need so much space Bengay to get through trying to charge through the first order with his geriatric space adventures.
Yeah, so like, but what's cool though is literally one of the very first conversations I ever had with my now good friend Nick Milkey was about The Last Jedi while we were standing in line at Hair and Makeup on the set of The Wonder Years. And we had literally just met like 5 minutes earlier when I noticed the tattoo on his arm, and we just kind of started talking about Star Wars. I think one of the first things I asked him was, what did you think of the sequels? And we just kind of went into a little discussion about that. And he kind of had me looking at The Last Jedi in a little bit different way from that arc of being a father or the master, you know, to our children. And I was like, oh God, that was there the whole time. And I was too wrapped up in my own bullcrap to accept a bigger thing. Now, having said that, I've come to appreciate Luke's story in that movie a lot more than I did. It's still not a movie I enjoy watching. There's too many moments for me in that movie. Like, why did you? What, you should have let him go. He would have taken out the gun and would have taken them all out. Like that was the plan. What do you know? And I'm throwing like my hat around. Like there's just moments in that movie where I just couldn't understand the decisions that were being made. But like I said, it wasn't my Star Wars, so I was, I didn't like it, but it's grown on me some. The Luke story has grown on me a lot. There are still some things I don't like about that movie, some holes I don't like about that movie, but the Luke part of it I've really come to embrace, when originally that was the part I hated the most. Like he stared at the Emperor in the face and threw his lightsaber down because he had that much faith, but he had a bad dream and he's going to kill his nephew in his sleep. I wasn't buying that. I was like, this is not the same guy. One of the things I said to Nick was, this is the ultimate good guy in all of every story. The ultimate good guy is Luke Skywalker. So to see him, falter, I wasn't prepared for it.
But what's interesting is, and I will. This is an argument point that I love. I actually think if you think about, he almost killed his own father to save his sister, and he stopped at the last minute. So it's actually no different.
On point.
Whatsoever.
No different.
Okay. Yep.
It's no different, but I was too clouded to see.
But you're
all
right.
that.
Yeah. You were. I mean, it's true, and that's. I think Patrick was talking about it earlier, and so was Chris. It's like it's the dark side cave on Dagobah. What you get out of The Last Jedi is what you bring in, and I think,
and I want to say it's very impressive that you're being this forward about this. Like, it's a very, it is. I feel like a lot of people are not as like forthcoming with like, oh, I was not. I see the light now, and I was wrong, and I figured it out. Like you're still not totally there, which is fine. It doesn't have to be everyone's favorite movie, but like, it is a big thing to be able to admit that, like, oh no, I figured it out.
Well, that's the beauty of this space, is that it's safe. So we don't always agree, but I love the fact that the sequels have resonated with my son. That's the trilogy that brought him into the fandom. And he likes watching the sequel trilogy. And they always say, when you have children, their interests and hobbies become your interests and hobbies. And so I've watched the sequels a lot more than I thought I would, since they connect with him. So, I watch my Star Wars on my own time. And then when he wants to watch Star Wars, I'm like, hey, let's watch a Star Wars movie. What do you want to watch? The Force Awakens. Okay. Or Rise of Skywalker. Not my favorite Star Wars by any stretch, but that's what my son wants to watch, and that's what I want to connect with him on. So we put it on. So I love the fact that it connects with a younger generation.
Yeah, and there's
though they weren't my favorite.
Yeah, no, and I think we're actually at our live presentation next week. We're going to talk a little bit about this as well, but it's this concept of, ownership. Me, Nick, and Chris and Patrick, we grew up with that original trilogy. Actually, I don't think Patrick did. I don't know your age, but
I'm
it was,
dead. I'm,
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm here.
So that's ours, and you'll always compare it, and you'll always feel, even I think any of us, if we're being honest, you feel a little threatened. It's like your favorite band, right? I talk about that all the time, but it's like people are like, you're not a real fan. You just got into the band in the last 10 years. They've been around for 20 years. I had their cassette tape, and it's like, no, we're all fans though. But you
I have the underground stuff,
right? You got in earlier. I got in later, but we still love the same stuff. And to me, this is why I am a huge Clone Wars fan. I did not watch Clone Wars on its first run. My son,
Me either,
as a 10-year-old boy, 9-year-old boy, was a huge Clone Wars fan. And I'm so glad that I sat with him and watched it. None of us could get through Resistance. We tried, but that was, Rebels.
My bag.
And Rebels actually was the first one that was appointment television for us. We would watch Rebels, and that was such a great thing. And just like you're saying, and that's what's great about Star Wars. I say it all the time. So many different doorways. You just have to, you're not always going to love the doorway that you're going in, but you're still going to the same spot. So,
but I love the fact that people love it, and we're still talking about it, and it's a reason for us all to come together here and talk about it, even if we don't all agree on everything about it. But Nick opened my eyes to some of that, so I appreciate that these years later. Not my favorite, but I've learned to appreciate it more, and it doesn't make me angry like it used to.
Well, that's awesome. Well, with that, we will let you go for the night. Thank you for calling in, Jeff. And hey, Jeff, thanks for being a patron. And hopefully we'll see you on.
Always love you guys. Good to see you
hopefully
guys.
We'll see you on Sunday when we talk to the lovely and talented Deborah
you'll
Wilson.
see me there.
So, awesome. All right, man. Thank you so much.
Buddy.
See you soon. See, there's a different overlay that I just screwed up.
It looks great. It looks great.
Everybody. It's like some weird American Gladiators game. Like you have to dodge the tennis balls and get in the right spot.
Hey, do me a favor. Put up what Darth Chaco just put up.
What did he put?
I got you. Right here.
No, not that one.
Which one?
The Tamravora.
There you go.
Yeah. Watch Resistance. There's a damn good story in there that you guys are missing.
Oh no, I've watched it.
Read the
I haven't.
Read the comics. So I actually, all right. I look, and I will say, Christopher Sean was one of my favorite guests I've ever had on the show. He was just the loveliest man in the world, and he's just a great guy. But you know what? Maybe like The Last Jedi, like people have been saying tonight, maybe I need to go back for it, and I will. I'm making a commitment to at some point.
Here's the thing.
Before the next show, you will have rewatched all of Resistance.
No.
Patrick, let's not get crazy. But here's the thing. Here's what I was going to say. Here's what I'll throw out there. Because Pete and I, jokingly for the most part, crap on the comics and, do what we do, maybe our assignment from Chris is, as a penance, we'll watch Resistance and we'll do a Resistance show sometime coming up.
And just read one comic. I'll pick one out. I'll pick them out for
both
of you.
I read, first of all, I read the one that you emailed to me, and I also read the ones that you sent me in the mail. So I've got that going for me.
Okay. Right.
Chris, when I see you next Sunday at Philly Fan Expo, I want you to get me started down the right road.
I will. I got you covered.
Well, good. Well, Patrick, you have spent 32 more minutes than we expected of you and or asked of you, and we really appreciate it. Patrick, any last thoughts on The Last Jedi before we let you go?
It's a good movie.
100%.
Okay, there you go. What else do we need? That's perfect. Patrick, where can people keep up with you and follow you and stalk you? And
you know what? Go for it. Stalk me. It's fine. I don't have that much going on, so it's okay. You can watch the George Lucas Talk Show. It's all on YouTube. I recommend just finding a guest that you like and then watching it that way. I think that's the easiest way to hop into it. There's a really good one from a couple months ago with Amy Irving. star of Carrie, auditioned for Princess
Yes.
Leia, auditioned for Marion, was married to Steven Spielberg. A wild episode. I would recommend that one. You can follow me on Twitter at Patrick Cotner. You can follow me on Instagram at Cotner. And if you like comedy, I produce a live show here in Los Angeles. It's an improv show where famous people come in and tell stories from their life, and then very good improvisers, probably who you've seen in other stuff, do improv based off those stories. This Sunday, it's Kyle Mooney from SNL, star of Brigsby Bear, starring Mark Hamill.
Nice.
And you can stream it online too from anywhere in the world. Just buy a streaming ticket, and it's really fun. It's called Untitled Improv Project, and it's at Dynasty Typewriter Theater in Los Angeles.
That
There you
is
go.
fantastic. Chris, what's going on with Bro Axiom this week?
Well, I think we're taking the weekend off for shooting the poodle at least.
Okay.
With them Memorial Day and everything. Plus, Roke and I are going to be watching AEW, pro wrestling. We do that. We have new quick shots this week with Dr. Afra and Sana Staros, two new issues of those coming out. So expect previews coming out on Monday, between Monday and Tuesday for those. And I think that's it. I think that's what we got going on this week. Yeah.
Excellent. And of course, on Around the Galaxy, Nick, what's
Yes.
happening with that little show of ours?
Obviously the thing we're super excited about, actually yesterday. Yesterday we dropped our episode with Joe Barksdale. If you follow professional football, Joe played in the NFL. He played at Louisiana State University. He is a musician. He's a stand-up comedian, super funny guy, huge Star Wars fan. So we had a follow-up conversation with him. Pete and I got to sit down and talk about fandom and Star Wars and lightsabers and all the things that Joe's into. That episode dropped in the podcast feed yesterday. If you're a patron, join us Sunday afternoon. We're going to be talking to Deborah Wilson. We're excited about following up with her, the second part of Sear's story. Me, Pete, Chris, we're going to all do that interview together. I'm really excited about that. That will come out in the podcast feed in a couple of weeks. I will also say, just throwing a little bit of a shout out, the first time that I encountered Deborah Wilson was on a George Lucas talk show when she was on with Patrick. And she's amazing.
And I should also say, in Jedi Survivor, there is a George Lucas talk show Easter egg.
Yes, there is.
Oh, there is.
One of the lead designers is like a fan of the show, I guess. And one of our things that we talk about constantly on the show, sorry to hijack
No,
this.
this is worth it.
Real George Lucas, not that my George is not real George, but you understand.
We
He's
got
a
you.
huge Norman Rockwell collector, loves Norman Rockwell. So we always talk about these silly plates from the 70s that they're called Butter Boy and Butter Girl. It's just a boy with a plate of butter, and he's just like going like this. And they made, there's a poster in one of the, I have not played the game yet, in one of the buildings, and it's
It's a robot butter boy.
It's the waitress droid from Dex's Diner.
Yes.
And she's like holding stuff like Butter Boy, and it says like it says something underneath it that is like close enough.
In Arabesh, it's like Butter Boy. It's bananas. It's so
crazy.
Funny.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's really funny.
Yeah. So
100%. So I'll retweet that because you put it up on Twitter not too long ago.
Let me see if I can pull
I'll
it up.
retweet that in our feed. You can check that out.
Yeah.
So if you're a patron, join us Sunday afternoon while we talk to Deborah Wilson. If you are not a patron, that's still going to pop up in the Around the Galaxy podcast feed here, I think next week. And then, here we go. Yep, there it is.
So
All right, so
that
there's
is
Butter Boy.
And then this
That is the
him.
Norman Rockwell Butter Boy. This is in the game. You have the droids.
Funny. It rules so much.
That's
amazing.
Anyways.
It's amazing. It's really, really fantastic.
Yeah.
So check that out. Join us. Become a part of all the fun that we do. And then the other thing I want to plug and push is if you are anywhere in the Philadelphia area next Sunday, go hang out with Pete and Chris. I'm very, very jealous and sad that I don't get to hang out and be there. I thought I was going to make it. It's not going to work out. But go hang out with them, be a part of that panel, Growing Up Star Wars. It's one of our passions. The three of us are certainly, Gen X age Star Wars fans or Generation X-Wing, as we like to say sometimes. But go hang out, be a part of that panel, hear what they have to say, and, throw an obnoxious question at them on my behalf.
I'll throw it to Chris. That'd be great. So, well, thank you everybody for hanging out with us tonight. We had a lot of fun talking about The Last Jedi, talking about what we liked and hearing people's own personal stories on it. I think that's great. Maybe we'll pick another movie at some point. We'll go to that, or maybe it'll be Star Wars Resistance. I don't know. We'll figure something out. It'll be fun. But we will be back again next week. Make sure to follow us on all your social media channels at the SSW Network. And go to our website at the SSWnetwork.com to find out how you can be a patron, or you can also order our merch, cool shirts. You can always get some cool shirts there. But I'm going to wrap it up and say, Nick, may the force be with you.
Always.
Just one more round, friend, then homeward bound, friend. Don't forget me in your dreams. Just one more song, friend, and then so long, friend. The nights get shorter, it seems. Just one more rhyme, friend. Yes, it's a crime, friend. But you know time, friend. Time can fly. So it's good night, friend. Good night, but not goodbye.